Hi everyone, I'm with Sarah Richardson from Portner Law in central London today because a lot of people have been asking about the legal process, what they need to get in place before buying a property in London, and Sarah is very familiar with that process. So we thought we'd ask her a few questions, hopefully give you guys a bit of insight in on property law in London and what you need to have in place in order to buy. Tell us a little bit about what the process is like for buying a property in London, and I'd say firstly what a buyer, whether they're based in the UK or based overseas, what they need to get in place as soon as they found a property, or ideally even before they found a property, so they're ready to go once an offer's been accepted on the legal side.
ID. Get your ID ready, get your ID sorted, get your passports and your address ID, which is a utility bill or a bank statement, ready.
In the last 3 months?
In the last 3 months, addressed to you at your home address. That is very important. Nobody can get going without it.
Okay, so that's the first thing that somebody should do, whether they're UK based or overseas. And if you are from overseas, that can take a little bit of time because you need to get it verified by a
UK qualified solicitor working in the jurisdiction where you are.
Okay, perfect. So that's something that they can do. And roughly how long does the process take once an offer's been accepted and you've done all the IDs and you can start the process? Roughly how long can somebody expect it to take? Realistically, but optimistically?
Yes, realistically, but optimistically. I would say that it would be not less than 2 weeks, and that's pretty ambitious. That would usually be for a freehold purchase, and then usually it's 4 to 6 weeks to exchange. For a leasehold property, you're probably looking at more like 4 weeks.
Okay.
To get to an exchange.
And that's realistic. So I know a lot of people say, you can exchange a lot sooner than that. You can, just to be clear, and that is doable, isn't it?
You can, but you need to have a very motivated seller as well.
Yeah.
So even if you want to get into the property and you're willing to move as quickly as you possibly can, your seller has also got to be working on the same sort of time frame.
Okay, perfect. I've also just thought of something that somebody else has asked, and I've done a little video on it before, which is the difference between, just a summary, because a lot of people in other countries don't have freehold or leasehold.
Yeah.
Very quickly, how can you explain what a freehold is, what the difference between freehold and leasehold is?
Well, freehold...
From a lawyer's point of view, because I've already done a video, but this is a lawyer, she knows her stuff.
Okay, so freehold... If you look at a house, for instance, if you own a freehold house, you own that entire house, you own the land on which the house stands. That's all yours. If you own a leasehold property, you technically own the lease, you own the interest in the lease, and the lease will grant you an exclusive right and ownership of an area. So that's usually a flat, and it could include the balcony, or it could just be an exclusive use of the balcony rather than you owning it. And
but that's not an issue, is it? If the balcony isn't included in your lease,
90% of
it's still fine, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. No one else can use it anyway. They can't access it.
Okay, because I know that's come up in the past. And just to be clear, that even if it's not included in your lease, but you still have right to access the balcony, it's a non-issue.
Yeah, I would say it's 50% of buildings demise it, which means that it's included in your flat, and 50% of leases give you an exclusive use to it. Exclusive use is sometimes better, even though it sounds worse, because it means that the freeholders or the managing agents or the landlords, whoever it is, will be maintaining that balcony sometimes, and you're contributing to the cost rather than having to maintain it yourself.
Perfect. And share a freehold.
So share a freehold is where you have a lease. This is what really gets people sometimes. If we go back to the house example, you'll have a lease at the top floor, a lease at the bottom floor, but together you own the freehold.
So you own a share in the freehold.
You own 50% of the freehold, but there's no value in the freehold because the value is only in the 2 flats. There's nothing left.
What if there's more than 2 flats?
If there's more than 2 flats, then the value is in however many flats there are. So if there's 3 flats, the value is in the 3 flats, and then there'll be 3 of you who own the freehold.
And so if you had and this just to explain a little bit further, so if you own a share of freehold, you still have an underlying lease but you own a share in the freehold of the building. So it's if you could have a lease that's even with a share of freehold, you could have a lease that's 999 years, or you could still have a share of freehold with a 50-year lease.
Yeah, normally if you've got a share of freehold, the freeholders will have granted themselves 999-year leases, which are a lot of people think of as virtual freeholds because from a value point of view, they're worth the same as a freehold. But to look at it this way, if you both own leases, you have to still have that lease there even if you do own part of the freehold as well, because you need to regulate the way that you use your property because it interacts so much with the other leaseholder in the building. You don't want your downstairs neighbour, for instance, to do any alteration that they want to do because that could really compromise the structure of the building, and likewise they don't want you to do it. So the lease is really there from a regulatory point of view.
Okay, so and if anyone wants any more information on leasehold, share, freehold, or they're buying something and they're a bit unsure, then you ask us questions and we can get them over to Sarah, or I can put you in touch with Sarah directly and you can go through it with her. So any other tips? So we've done time frames, we've done leasehold, share, freehold,
We've done ID.
and we've done ID. So that's pretty much it from a legal point of view. You'll check the title when you're going through the process. If it's a leasehold or a freehold, you check the title, you apply for searches to the local authority, which could take how long, depending on the authority, 7 days to
7 weeks.
7 weeks, depending on which borough you're in.
Yeah.
So again, it all depends on the borough. So if you are going through that process at the moment and you've got questions because it's taking longer or you need some kind of recommendation, then just get in touch with us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Top 3 tips from a London property lawyer when buying in London.
Okay, well, it's my quote that I'm going to use.
Okay.
Be optimistic but remain realistic, because you are at the mercy of the other party involved and you're very much at the mercy of their solicitor as well.
Yeah. So you can act very quickly as a buyer, but if the other side isn't on the same page or they don't have somebody acting as quickly,
exactly.
then
It's going to slow things down, and if they're in a chain, they're going to be controlled again by the onward chain. And if you're in a chain, if you're selling somewhere but looking to buy somewhere, you're going to have a chain as well. But be optimistic, because usually you can get around any problem, but realistic, so that you don't end up becoming really frustrated with it if it's not moving at the time frame that you would like it to.
Perfect. And one other thing, if someone is purchasing a property with a mortgage, you'll liaise with the finance broker or the bank and organise that. And if they're purchasing cash, they don't need to get a mortgage. You just need to see proof of funds, right?
Well, we should see proof of funds whether they've got a mortgage or not. So if you're getting a mortgage for 50% of the property, we would still want to see proof of funds for the other 50%, i.e. where is the rest of the cash coming from for the balance. And if you were buying a cash purchase with no mortgage, we'd want to see where the entire funds are coming from.
Okay, perfect. So just to finalise, have everything in place with IDs, whether you're UK based or overseas. Be optimistic but realistic. It's an exciting time to buy.
It is an exciting.
Busy solicitor at the moment in London.
Whatever they're saying about the property market, I'm not feeling it. It's pretty busy still. Yeah, there seems to be a lot of buying and selling happening at all levels. It doesn't seem to just be at the lower or just at the middle range. There's movement all over.
Interesting. You heard it here from a very successful London property lawyer. So any questions, any information that you need, or you need a lawyer to represent you in London, get in touch. I can put you in touch with Sarah and she can answer any questions.